All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment. We appreciate everybody joining in, especially today with the frozen conditions across South Louisiana. So we got a larger web audience than live audience for sure today. So we got a few brave people who made it across the bridge to get here today. So our topic is scalable computing update and kind of the scalable computing portfolio that Rockwell offers. And so we'll start off with a few our traditional intro slides, and then I'll introduce our guest speakers today that'll join us. All right. So as usual, we have maybe have some new audience members out there. So just kind of a repeat slide, but we do record and we archive all of our user group sessions, and we put them at our blog site, our automation blog site, which is trcnew.com for the Reynolds Company New Orleans. That's our little acronym for our branch, trcnew.com. And we put, again, presentations, videos, and a lot of supporting resources are all there. So kind of a little shortcut place for you versus having to go hunt it down at the Rockwell website from all of its various locations on their website. We kind of try to condense it and aggregate it all into one spot for you for follow-up after. Also want to kind of highlight something new that we've just posted here in the last couple of weeks over the holiday break is kind of really built out the product portfolio to on our blog site now. So underneath automation solutions, and then there's a product kind of menu, and then a flyout there, and you can kind of drill down into individual product portfolios, so controllers, I/O, networking, and again, all the same content is at Rockwell's website, but we're maybe a little bit of a shortcut path for you there, perhaps, if you don't know how to really navigate through the Rockwell site to find out what you're looking for. We can kind of maybe help you find that content a little faster here on our portfolio pages. So I invite you to take a look at those. And again, we kind of put a plug in for this last time, but just kind of want to talk about it again. Kind of our automation selection chatbot. So when you go to our blog site, you can actually use our little chatbot, and it'll help guide you to information as well. So you can kind of chat with it. It's menu driven to an extent, but you can also kind of free-form chat with it, and it will actually point you to a lot of the technical data on the products that you want. So kind of a cool little guy. Yeah, you can use Google, but you can also have a little more fun just chatting with the chatbot. So we have a couple of we do have some events, some topics identified for the next couple months. February users group, we're going to go into a power topic with the IntelliCenter MCC and kind of a networking design session there, which should be pretty informative. We've had a lot of questions on that from some previous sessions. March, we're going to look at industrial components and talk about reliable power delivery, power supplies, and UPSs. So that's actually a pretty interesting topic. I think one of those things that we may not always think about or just kind of say, yeah, it's just a power supply, but maybe a little more about the kind of technicals about reliable power delivery. And then April, we're looking at doing FactoryTalk Links and an update on it. It's getting a little bit of a rebranding from RS Links to FactoryTalk Links. And there's also the ability to do OPC UA now in Links. So I think we'll have a nice topic on that, and hopefully explain and demystify FactoryTalk Links a little bit. With that, we'll introduce our guest speaker, Julie Robinson, who's actually presented for us before last year in April. So this is kind of a follow-up topic for Julie. She had introduced the CompactLogix 5480 last year, and we had like a session on edge computing. So this is kind of a nice follow-up to that topic, but we're going to talk more about the larger, the scalable computing model, run the full gamut from the plant floor edge all the way up to the enterprise level. So you kind of see our agenda there to the side. So we'll kind of touch on each of those levels and even bring in some other solutions there at the end and kind of tie it all back at the end. Julie will kind of conclude it at the end with the whole scalable computing and the analytics piece, which is definitely top of mind going forward. So with that, I'll let, and Chris Watkins, also solution architect with Rockwell, who's not pictured there, but he's also out there and will help support our discussion as well. So with that, I'm going to let Julie take it from there.
All right, thanks, Wayne. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. I heard you guys have some pretty rough weather down there, so hopefully you guys are staying warm and staying safe. So we'll go ahead and get started. So like Wayne said, I'm going to talk to you about scalable compute and kind of what does that mean? Why do we now have this portfolio of products that we're calling scalable computing products, and what are some use cases that we think customers are getting excited about? So I wanted to kind of talk through all that stuff. So to start off, if we talk about kind of why did we develop this portfolio of products, it really comes back to being able to analyze data and being able to adapt to changes quickly, because we know that that is what's going to drive productivity, and that's what's going to drive efficiency in manufacturing processes. And so, understanding that things like unplanned downtime is a huge struggle for manufacturers today. And so being able to minimize that unplanned downtime is going to improve your efficiency. It's going to help you lower costs and ultimately, help you become more competitive globally. And so you'll hear us we talk a lot about the connected enterprise, and that's really our vision, to connect all this information from across the plant floor to the rest of the enterprise. And so one of the key challenges is that, I'm implementing my connected enterprise, and now I have a ton of data, and I don't know what to do with it all to make it useful and to be able to make decisions and make, actionable decisions real time to be able to drive change. And so, we hear that there's numbers thrown around that, like, by 2025, big data will be measured in zettabytes, right? Which is just crazy. I mean, that's just hard to even imagine that those quantity, that number of or that amount of data. So now we have all this data that we're collecting, and we got to figure out what are the right associations. How do we transform that into information that becomes actionable, and we can use it to make decisions? And so that's what scalable computing is all about. It's a key enabling technology to enable us to accomplish all of this, right? Transform that data into actionable information, real time, contextualize that data, and be able to drive change and adapt to changes, right? So Wayne, if you can go to the next slide then. And so what we're going to talk about today is there's a variety of different platforms that you'll be able to use to implement this compute functionality. So whether you're kind of down at the lowest level, so down at the device level, which is going to be closest to the machine, or kind of that middle layer, which is the system level, or at the enterprise level, we want you to be able to have the flexibility to implement this compute capability where you see fit, right? What is the right level of the architecture for your application, where decisions need to be made and where it makes the most sense. And so when we talk about the device level, again, that's kind of at the lowest level of the architecture. And that's what we'll spend probably most of the time today talking about, just because that's where the most new products are that we're launching here. And the point is that, again, taking all that data that exists today in our smart machines and our smart devices and making it more accessible. If I have to wait to manually run a report to process that data, send it all the way up to the cloud, make decisions, bring it back down to the operator level, then that's way too late, right? The opportunity is over. And so we're really trying to move from a more reactive state to a proactive state. So one of the common things that we hear from a lot of customers is we want to be able to do things like machine learning and predictive analytics. So again, having the visibility to know when to deploy the right resources for predictive maintenance, for example, is a huge time saver for improving efficiencies. It helps minimize equipment failures, right? Because now I can see early indication of when a sensor is going to fail, or maybe my machine is going to stop, and I can make better decisions to stop that at a more appropriate time when I can plan for it. Another big use case is customers are looking for ways to model their machines, and they want to be able to make real-time adjustments based on that model to really get back to that ideal operation of the machine. So again, a bunch of different use cases that you can imagine for being able to implement compute functionality. And so now we are providing that ability to run those different applications on different pieces of hardware throughout the architecture. So if we kind of look at the other extreme, if we look up at the enterprise level, maybe I want to aggregate data from a bunch of different machine cells to say I want to understand the genealogy of a product, or maybe I want to understand energy management data from a more, from a higher level, looking at multiple different machines. Or, maybe I'm looking at a bunch of different plants, and I'm trying to understand why my plant halfway around the world is running differently than the one that's running right downstairs, right? That's right in my hometown. And so having that data in the cloud, for example, allows us to access it from anywhere in the world, regardless of your physical location. And so that's really, really powerful to be able to have that view and really optimize your production. So again, each of these options are going to give you the ability to run many different applications in a Windows 10 environment. So it's Windows 10 IoT Enterprise. And what we really think is kind of changing the game for us here is being able to put that compute product closer to the source of the information to get you, to allow you to make quicker and more informed decisions, which of course is ultimately going to result in increased productivity. And so it's all about being able to put your applications where they need to be, again, at the right level in the architecture, rather than where they have to be, right? So in the past, we may have forced you to put an application at a certain level because that was the only product that we had available at that time. But now having all these different products at different levels of the architecture allows you to choose where you want to put those applications and where you want to run them to make the right decisions. All right, so Wayne, if you want to go to the next slide. So now we'll do kind of a deeper dive at the device level. So the first product I want to talk a little more specifically about is the compute module. And so this slide kind of gives you a high level overview of what, when I talk about the compute module, the three kind of key things that I'd like for you to take away are, first of all, it's in chassis computing, so it fits right in the ControlLogix chassis. We'll talk more about the flexibility of it, and then how this really ultimately leads to simplified architectures. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk more specifically about in-chassis computing. And so the big thing here is enabling information access over the backplane to the ControlLogix controller. So again, getting that closer to the source of the information, putting that compute product right there next to the controller, being able to pull out data real time and be able to make decisions. And so we think this is ultimately going to help customers reduce downtime and improve efficiency by having that really close to the source of the information. And in the example where we talked about being able to predict downtime before it occurs, I think is a really important use case. A pretty simple thing, right, is you have a smart sensor on your machine and you're monitoring that data. And so now having that compute product where you can add a little more context to that sensor data to understand, okay, well, the last time when the sensor got to this point, it was going to fail in another 4 hours or whatever, whatever that may be. And so being able to build those type of models, understand what's going to happen, really can improve efficiency and help you predict failures before they occur. So if we go to the next slide, then if we talk about flexibility, so one of the really nice things about this product is you can slide it right into your existing application. So if I have an existing chassis with a ControlLogix controller running and I happen to have an open slot, I can go ahead and slide this compute module right in there. I'm not disrupting production at all. This is a great example of doing like a phased migration where, again, it's no disruption to production. And I can immediately add value to those existing applications where I already have a ControlLogix controller. On the flip side, if you're working on a new machine design, you can always build that capability into a new machine design or equipment design. Another common thing we hear a lot from folks is OEMs are constantly looking for ways to be able to differentiate their machines, and so this is a great example of being able to add that compute functionality. OEMs know the most about their machines, right? And so being able to add that capability to further differentiate their machine and provide additional value to their customers. So if we go to the next slide, then, so when we talk about simplified architectures, another really common use case is integrated visualization. So there is an onboard display port, so you can connect this directly to an industrial monitor. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. We do have VersaView 5100 monitors that would be a great fit to connect this to. And then you can install your FactoryTalk View application or whatever your HMI application is right on this compute module, and you may be able to eliminate a separate PC that's in a cabinet that's on the shop floor. So again, just kind of simplifying architectures, being able to collapse that footprint by enabling you to do more right in the rack. There is we talked about the connection to the ControlLogix processor, so there is a built-in API where you can talk over the backplane to the controller, or in the use case where we talked about integrated visualizations, there's two Ethernet ports on the front where you can connect up to your network. The other common thing is, it does run Windows 10 IoT Enterprise, so it is basically like a PC in the rack. So if you want to run other just Windows applications on this module, you could do that as well. So really, again, just kind of collapsing that architecture and allowing you to simplify the footprint of your machines. All right, so next slide. So again, if we look more at the details of it, we talked about the embedded display port. It is Windows 10 IoT Enterprise 64-bit. We will also have a Linux version. The Windows version is going to come first. It's we're really pushing to get that out this month. We're hoping to get it out by the end of January. So it should be out very, very soon, and then the Linux version will be very soon after that. It is an Intel Atom 1.4 gigahertz dual-core processor, 32 gig solid-state drive, so about 20 gig free for your user applications, and then 4 gig of RAM. And then we talked about there are two gigabit ports on the front of that. Those are two separate. It's like a dual NIC card. So you wouldn't be able to use that as like an embedded switch technology like some of our other products, but that does offer two separate network interfaces. And then this just talks a little bit more about how you can talk over the backplane. One of the really unique features of this module is having that backplane communication to the ControlLogix processor. So we kind of see in the drawing there, you can talk directly to the ControlLogix processor over the backplane. You can also go out the front port over the network and talk to a remote controller that might be in a remote chassis. So the use cases that are shown on the left-hand side, again, if you're originating from the compute module talking to a ControlLogix processor, you would use the API to exchange data, or you could use the embedded Ethernet ports. On the flip side, you could originate from the Logix controller and talk to the compute module. So it is bidirectional. And so this just kind of gives you a little information on how you would do that if you're originating from the controller talking to the compute module. And then, of course, like we said before, you can install Rockwell software or any third-party software that's compatible with Windows 10 you could put that on the module.
Pause a second to see if anyone has a question before we move on. Online audience, you can type a question anytime in the question panel or chat panel as well, and we'll try to answer it. If not, anything else on the compute module, Julie? We'll sweep.
Nope. If there's no questions, we can go ahead and kind of move on to the 5480.
Okay. We'll move on.
All right. So we talked about the compute module. So again, compute module is basically like a PC that fits in the rack, fits in your ControlLogix rack. The next thing we wanted to talk about in that scalable compute portfolio is a new controller that's coming out. So 5480. So what this is actually a Logix controller. So it's a Logix controller first and foremost. But now we have the ability to run Windows 10 IoT Enterprise applications right alongside of my Logix controller. So again, when we talk about being able to simplify architectures and kind of collapse architectures and have that compute product or that compute capability built into the controller. That's what this provides. So in the compute module, it is a separate module, so it's separated from the controller. Whereas here, it's more like a virtual separation, right? So it's still a Logix controller first and foremost. It is not at all dependent on Windows operation. Windows can blue screen, Windows can shut down, and your real-time control will keep going. But you have that kind of compute functionality built in, kind of right alongside of the controller. And we'll talk about the data connection or the data communication is a little different model from the compute module, but same theory, right? Having that compute functionality right next to your controller. So if we go on to the next slide, then we'll talk a little more specific about it. So it does have, so if you kind of look at the front of the controller, what you'll see on the left-hand side is this one actually has 3 gigabit Ethernet ports. And so the ones on the front left side of the controller, those are dedicated to Logix. So if you think about the 5380, the CompactLogix 5380 controller that launched about 2 years ago, that has 2 ports that are configurable for device level ring or dual IP. And so this is going to have that same technology, right? So the 2 bottom ports that you see on the photo there are configurable. You can use them in a dual IP configuration or device level ring. And then there's a 3rd gigabit Ethernet port right on top there that you can also use for, you can hang drives off of it. You can hang I/O modules off of it. It's another SIP-based port. You could also use it as an uplink. So with those 3 ports, that'll give you up to 3 different, potentially 3 different IP addresses in Logix, right? And then on the bottom, it doesn't show up in the photo, but then on the underside are the Windows-based ports. So you have a dedicated network interface port for Windows. So think about like your NIC card on your laptop. There's also 2 USB 3.0 ports. So if you wanted to hook up a keyboard and mouse, or if you wanted to hook up like an external hard drive or something like that, you could do that with those USB ports. It is from a Logix perspective, it's a 20 meg Logix controller. And then on the Windows side of it, then it's got a 64 gig solid state drive. So by the time you install Windows, install the operating system, you'll probably get around 52 gig of free space for user applications. It does run on a commercially available CPU, so this is different from our other Logix controllers, where in the past we developed our own ASIC. This does run on an Intel chip, so it is an Intel i7 processor, so very high performance, very high speed performance that we're able to get with this controller. And then it does have all the same security features that we introduced with the 5380 and then the ControlLogix 5580. So those are our next gen high performance controllers that we released in the last 2 years or so. It will have all those same enhanced security features that are available on the 5480. So if we go to the next slide, so again, because it is an i7 processor, it is very high performance. It will support up to 150 axes on Ethernet IP. So really increased capacity over the 5380. So to support those very large, very high speed, performant, applications that require very high performance. And then, of course, with Windows alongside of the Logix controller, it does allow you to do those third-party applications without having a separate PC on the plant floor. So again, when we talk about like architecture simplification and footprint reduction, which becomes especially important for OEMs that are trying to reduce the footprint of their machine, this is a really nice solution for that. So very similar to what we talked about with the compute module and kind of those just in general scalable compute use cases, you can do that on the 5480 as well, right? So applications that'll run on Windows 10 will be supported. A couple of the key use cases that we will be testing. So we will fully test and try to characterize to kind of help give our customers a little more guidance. Our integrated visualization. So again, that use case of running my FactoryTalk View SE Station application right alongside my control. We will test that out. We will publish white papers and publish kind of more guidance on how to do that, and if there are any boundaries to being able to implement that type of solution. Similarly, we'll do the same thing for a thin client. Another common use case we get asked about a lot is, can I run ThinManager on this, and can I use it as a thin client? So we'll be providing some guidance on that, and then data logging. So that kind of simple use case of, hey, I want to grab data right out of my Logix controller because I've got Windows running right there. How do I do that, and what are any sort of boundaries around being able to accomplish that? So those will be available at launch. This one, this controller is, the launch is going to be more like this summer, so it's going to be a little bit later than the compute module, but we are very, very excited about getting this out and really being able to see what we can do with it. And then a couple other, those two bottom use cases, again, those are absolutely viable use cases. We talk a lot with customers about those. At this time, we're not necessarily going to test them ourselves. We will be focusing on those other three use cases to provide guidance on, but by all means, the controller is very capable of accomplishing those type of things. And so we encourage you to kind of think about your applications and think about what your current challenges are and your needs are, and try it out, right, and see how it performs for those certain use cases. And then this is just showing us a simple architecture drawing, again, just to kind of show the many different possibilities that you can do, having Windows running right alongside your control like that. Again, just as a disclaimer here, we are, as we do build out these use cases and do provide guidance and testing, we are just focusing on those three things. But really, we don't see any reason why you couldn't try some of these things. For example, FactoryTalk Cloud Gateway, if you wanted to have a way to push data up to the cloud straight from your controller, you could do that on the 5480 or the compute module. So certainly very viable use cases. It would just be very, very difficult for us to be able to go through and test and kind of validate every single one of those use cases, right? So, but certainly a possibility, and we encourage you to try it. And then the industrial 5400, or I'm sorry, the VersaView 5400 industrial computer. So these are, so on the surface, this is another industrial computer, right? This is our next gen industrial computer. These launched over the summer last year, so they've been out for a few months now. And these are really intended to allow customers to right size their applications, right? Our computers in the past were too big, they were oversized, they were expensive, and they just didn't really fit the needs of a lot of our customers. And so these are really more about right sizing those applications. They are designed for industrial environments, right? So they're fanless, there's no moving parts, there's no battery design, no battery in there. So very, very, very exciting new offering for our industrial computer line. And again, these are come with Windows 10 IoT Enterprise. You can also get Windows 7 available. There's 32-bit, 64-bit operating systems available. But again, just kind of another platform, another hardware, another piece of hardware that you can potentially run all those different use cases that we've been talking about on, depending on what you need for the application or what you want for your application. They do come in with the monitor or without, right? So you can get it just like we're showing in the picture here, or you can get it with the monitor. So.
Okay. So I kind of rounded out the device level products, and that's definitely a lot of Julie's expertise in device level. I'll talk about the system level here just for a few, just to kind of introduce kind of what fits there. System level would kind of be the traditional kind of computing space, I think, that we're used to in our industrial automation market, right? That's, you know, your traditional panel mount PC or your traditional desktop PC that's going to be running an HMI application or some other, you know, plant type software. So again, so the VersaView 5400 is kind of fits in both spaces, right? So that the product we just showed a minute ago, the little node box computer, definitely can be a nice little device level or edge level type of computer, but it also can be up in the system level as well. So there is a so this kind of shows the whole portfolio. 5100 being a monitor, 5200 being a thin client, which we'll definitely talk about more towards a little bit later on in this presentation. But the 5400 is can be an integrated display computer as well as the non-display. So you can get a, you know, kind of that traditional industrial computer that you're used to, kind of panel mounted on the panel with the integrated display. So our, you know, just some of the environmental rating specifications. You know, you're looking at 0 to 50 degrees C for the integrated, minus 20 to 60 degrees C for the non-display. Might actually come in handy today, the minus 20 rating. And again, no batteries, really maintenance-free type design. So just once again, a little more on the specs here around the units. And a little bit of a better picture of kind of what those products might look like. So the integrated display, 12, 15, 19, and a 22 inch, which is a nice large sized option available to you. So again, I think your traditional use case here is an HMI, kind of that, and you saw, I think, earlier in the introduction slides, this was looking at your layered, maybe 2, 3 type of layer in your plant model. Oops, there's some more pictures on it. Sorry, just a little more detail on the ports and availability. You know, what ports are available on these products for your application. So Julie had mentioned earlier too about the VersaView monitor. So, you know, for those edge devices, you know, such as the compute module or the Compact 5480, you know, you can directly mount a monitor right to those guys. So, you know, that could be, you know, the compute module could be in the chassis, and then you can have a monitor sitting there on the panel, and then you can plug in perhaps a industrial monitor such as this, the VersaView 5100, and that way you have your display right there and tied to those edge devices. So also in that system space, so those are the newer, the VersaView 5400 family, the VersaView family in general is kind of that shall we say, next generation of industrial computers from Rockwell. They still offer the 6181P integrated display computers. Just this is more of an awareness, just to let you know that product is still out there. So you know, these were built on i-series Intel Core. And let's see, sorry. So again, your panel mount computer displays, and then there was also an offering of the non-display industrial computers, the 6177Rs, which are still available. More of your traditional looking kind of tower mount computer, or even a chassis or 19-inch rack mount type system here. So if you do need to have a, you know, more of a rack type, rack mount type product, then this would help you there. Windows 7, Windows XP offering here. So again, this is a little bit of a previous generation product, so but still available. And then so moving to the enterprise level. We'll kind of call this enterprise level, but the IDC, the Industrial Data Center, can also be in that system level space too. It was shown earlier in the system level space. But this is again to kind of show this product. Not sure how aware our audience is about the Industrial Data Center, but Rockwell offers a complete turnkey solution here. So it's the rack, the server, the switch, everything kind of in a pre-configured, pre-tested package. And they can even do a complete turnkey on-site installation as well, if that's what you had you would like that. So the point of the IDC again is that you know, as we see our customers virtualize their operations more and more, you know, this is again, the IDC is just designed to kind of meet that virtualized environment, and you can again purchase it, have it installed, and then on the servers, you know, can install your, you know, virtualize your operations. They come in 3 sizes. So there's like the E1000, the E2000, and the E3000. So depending on your requirements and your operation, you know, it's how you would maybe size this. So the E1000, of course, would be kind of your entry level size. Typically I got a little cheat sheet on this here, but the E1000 is going to be like 1 server with 1 switch, right? So that's kind of your base system. The E2000 is 2 servers. Can go up to 3 servers and about 5 terabyte of usable storage, right? So so as your virtualized applications grow and grow, you know, you know, this guy might be where you want to be. And then up to 60 virtual machines, as you kind of see there at the top. And then lastly is the E3000, which for our kind of the large end, again, for that enterprise level, 150 virtual machines. And you're looking at up to 6 servers max. I think 3 servers is the standard that would come in it. And then up to 9 terabytes of usable storage. So so for your very large, you know, applications. So again, this is just kind of an awareness to say that it's there. This is basically, again, Rockwell kind of taking all the parts you need to deploy a virtualized solution on the plant floor, and bundling it and packaging it and pre-testing it, pre-engineering it, and delivering it to you. So so it's pretty nice thing to look at. And if you're in that situation of going full virtualized. And again, just another chart to kind of help show some of the specs there between the 3 different ones. Also, so you know, just to kind of show that there is a hazardous location product that Rockwell does offer, and that's the 6181X. This product's been out for some time, but there's been a revision here in the fall of Series H now. So Series H kind of brought some, you know, just kind of modernized the product and bring some, you know, later, you know, some modern specs to the computer itself. So again, you got an extreme temperature environment rating. This is a Class 1 Div 2 product, ATEX, IEC-EX rated, maintenance-free, fanless. It is a 12-inch display, so that's the one and only size that it comes in. So again, this is we see hazardous location, Class 1 Div 2 computing requirements, definitely in the oil and gas space, and some other various industries. So kind of what happened, so there was a previous series, Series F and G, and now there's a Series H, again, that upgrade just came out in the fall. So what that really did to it was it switched it from a Core Duo to the i3, up the RAM to 8 gig, 128 gig SSD, as well as bringing it up to a Windows 10 operating system and a better display resolution with a 1024 by 768. So that's kind of what happened there in the Series H product. And fault tolerance. So we're going to switch gears slightly here because this isn't a Rockwell product. This is a Stratus product, but Stratus is an Encompass partner of Rockwell's, and we see a lot of times when we talk virtualization, we also see ourselves discussing the fault tolerant server product at that time. So back on the IDCs we were showing a minute ago, those are Cisco servers and Cisco switches. But if you're looking to do a fault tolerant system, And a lot of times we definitely look at the Stratus product and the FT server. So it's a full redundant computer or server, with the lockstep technology between the two servers that are inside of that one box, with the zero failover time, zero data loss, right? So demanding, true demanding applications where uptime is essential. Then it just makes sense to look at the fault tolerant technology. So how this works is you actually have again two components, two hardware components. Everything's duplicated in there, and they're in complete lockstep with each other. So that if any one of those pieces within the first server were to fail, it would go over to the second to the backup and provide again, as much uptime as possible. Stratus does offer a remote monitoring of it too, so they can detect an issue, and they can even have a replacement part sent out as part of their kind of support plan. So again, they really they take uptime seriously. The FT server comes in three sizes, basically the 2810, 4810, and the 6810. So just kind of like we saw the IDC a few minutes ago, kind of small, medium, large, same situation here. So depending on your applications and how much you're trying to, how many virtual machines you're trying to run, you would kind of size your Stratus server for that. And there is a nice little sizing tool available that that kind of helps walk you through. You can kind of talk about what you're trying to do, and it'll kind of tell you the recommended size. So I didn't go into great detail here because we're going to do a seminar in 2 weeks that will actually dive deep into this whole Stratus server, fault tolerant server, the FT server, and how you maybe how you apply it, how you kind of that technology under the hood of how it works, as well as how you actually go about installing it. So that's going to be in Baton Rouge, and I don't think we haven't really talked about it a whole lot in our email blast, but that's going to come out here very soon. So that's in 2 weeks though, so it's going to come up quick. So I just wanted to kind of plug that while we're on the topic of Stratus. And last section for me before I turn it back to Julie is going to be Thin Clients and ThinManager. So that was kind of the last piece of that VersaView family. So the VersaView 5200 was or is that thin client product in there. So it looks very similar to the 5400. It's kind of that same little node box. Matter of fact, for the few of us that are in the room, we actually have it sitting there on the table. That's actually the thin client box right there. So the whole idea of the thin client is that there's really no operating system on it. It's getting everything off of the server. So it's going to point back to the server and then get its session or whatever information from it. So again, these are designed for the plant floor, so they're going to be industrial grade and suitable for our environments that we work with. So there's going to be there's kind of a roadmap of the 5200. So right now, the version that's out is kind of one in the family. There'll be kind of a nicer, kind of a lower end of thin client as well, and there'll also be a kind of a higher end, shall we say, that'll support multi-monitor, like quad monitor and 4K resolution. So they'll have that kind of high end thin client. And then I think the one that's out right now is kind of in that kind of nice middle of the road product. I think it's dual monitor support. So that's the version that's out. So a little more about the thin clients in general. We figure it might be a good use cases for a lot of these things. Kind of what thin client, why we see that switch to a thin client going on the plant floor. So again, you're getting your session from a server, right? So again, maybe the IDC or maybe the Stratus fault tolerant server, but so you're running some virtualized machines on those servers. So now your thin client is pointing back to that server and getting all of its information. So there's no maintenance really there, right? As far as all these deployed computers throughout the plant floor, right? Traditionally, we were talking all the system level computers a few minutes ago, but with all that comes Windows licensing and patches and support perhaps. Here with a thin client, you can, your session is being served up from the server, so your thin client is kind of dumb and just pointing back to the server and getting its information. So if you did have a thin client fail, you can simply replace a thin client, and it's going to pick up, it's going to go back to the server, get its session, and there's really nothing else to do there. So to help manage that, there is a product called ThinManager, which would run on the server. And ThinManager is there to totally help design, how to, again, help manage serving those sessions out to those thin clients. You would basically, in ThinManager, you would say, okay, I got a thin client, X, and these are the screens I'm going to serve up to that thin client. And then you can kind of control what gets served up to those screens. And then you can, again, if that thin client were to fail, you replace it, then that new thin client just picks up that session, and all that information is sitting there. Pretty seamless transition. What also makes ThinManager unique is that it delivers it in a couple different ways. So you can see first on the far left-hand side of the screen there, it's what types of content, right? So we talk about HMI screens, but it could be a lot of different things too, like webcams, panel view plus using VNC, other MES type data, that can all be served up through a thin client, and then the content can be delivered in several different ways. It could be by device, by user, or even by location. So so by device, it could be a computer, it could be a tablet, and then by user, so that could be very specific to where if I'm the operator and I log in as an operator, then I get certain screens served up to me as the operator. But maybe if I log in as an engineer, I get a different set of screens served up to me based on my credentials. And then by location is the ability to kind of geo-fence or geolocate the equipment. So so by Bluetooth beacon perhaps, or by GPS on your phone or tablet. So once you get into a vicinity of a particular piece of equipment, then the screens for that piece of equipment get served up. So a lot of times that would be a Bluetooth beacon perhaps in a plant floor. So as you walk up the Bluetooth beacon, the device would recognize that Bluetooth beacon and say, okay, I'm at machine 1, bring up machine 1 screens, right? You can also do it by GPS, so that if you're maybe like a pipeline type person, if you're driving around, as you drive up into that pipeline facility and that remote part of the world, it knows your GPS location. It'll pull up those screens for that location. So that's a couple different ways you can do it by the location. So kind of a little bit out, I know we're talking scalable compute, but just a little side tangent there on ThinManager. Definitely something we need to spend some more time with in some future sessions on the technology of the thin client. And with that, we're definitely right on schedule here. So I'm going to turn it back to Julie to kind of wrap it up and kind of discuss kind of the big the big use case we see for all of our scalable computing platform, and that's going to be analytics going forward.
All right, thanks, Wayne. So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we're showing here is I wanted to give you a visual of what this may look like. One of the really common questions that I get is, hey, this all sounds really good, but where, help me decide where I would use what product, right? So this is just trying to show you some different examples, maybe some different machine cell examples, where on the far left-hand side, let's say you have a ControlLogix application. You already have a 5580 in your application. It doesn't have to be 5580, but you've got the newest controller, and again, you're wanting to add that compute capability, so you can put the ControlLogix compute module right in there and be able to access all the data within that particular machine cell. And then in the center example, I'm showing the 5480, where maybe on this machine I've got high-speed motion application, and I want to be able to do some data analysis on what's going on there. So maybe the 5480 is a good fit for for that type of application. Again, high speed, high performance requirements, really large applications. And then on the far right, let's say I have a smaller application where I'm running a CompactLogix 5380, for example, and I want to use like a VersaView 5400. I could use that in that use case for some sort of compute functionality. In this example, I'm showing it connected to the 5100 monitor. Again, kind of showing that common use case of visualization. And same way with 5480, right? Like I've got the 5100 monitor attached to that. So if you wanted to use it for integrated visualization, in that case, you could use it like that. But another, okay, so let's go to the next slide then. And then if we look more at the enterprise level and we look at the industrial data center, common use case for that is going to be more like a, multi-machine cell application, right? So I've got my industrial data center where I'm running, maybe I have my FactoryTalk View server running, or maybe I've got FactoryTalk Asset Center, FactoryTalk Batch, for example, Historian, Viewpoint, things like that, more at that server level where I am looking across multiple machine cells or multiple machines, multiple parts of the plant, and I need that aggregated view with the industrial data center with my virtual servers. So this is just kind of showing some examples of all the different software packages that you can use, again, showing that flexibility of what you can do at all those different levels in the architecture, and being able to implement what you need where you need it. And then, so we talk about analytics, and so how does that fit into this whole story of scalable computing that we've been talking about? And that's probably one of the most common, as we talk about predictive analytics and health and diagnostics and things like that. That's one of the most, probably one of the most common asks that we get from customers on, how do I make my machines run better or make my plant run better? So FactoryTalk Analytics for devices is one of our recent product offerings. Today, it is only offered on the 5400, so you'll see that analytics appliance right there in the center. The intent is that we do want to make this a more portable application, so that you can run that application on multiple different hardware platforms. So the intent in the future is that if you want to run it on the compute module and put it right in your ControlLogix chassis, then you can do that. Again, that's not available today, but that's where we're going with that product, and that's our future plans for that. Similarly, if you want to run it on the 5480 right alongside your Logix controller, where you have that kind of in-controller compute capability, we want to be able to do that as well in the future. But again, for today, it's a separate. It kind of comes preloaded on the 5400. If you buy FactoryTalk Analytics for devices, you'll get the 5400 preloaded with the software. And so what that does is it goes out, it scans your network automatically, and it will provide you with health and diagnostics information for all of your Ethernet IP devices that are on the network. And so what it'll do is there's these things called action cards. And so what it'll do is it'll tell you, hey, you have an alarm on your PowerFlex drive, or you have a minor fault on your controller, or there's an error on your EN2T card or something like that. And it'll give you more information about what's going on with that. And then one of the really cool things is, as you're looking at these action cards and as you're seeing this health and diagnostics information, you can choose what's important to you. So if you're let's say you're an operator on machine A, and suddenly you're getting all these alerts that are for a machine in a totally separate section of the plant, you can say, you know what, I don't care about that. That's not something within my area of responsibility, and it'll quit showing you those alerts for those machines that you don't care about, right? And so again, it'll start to learn what it is that you care about, and it'll alert you to any potential issues that might be going on your network. So we've had, one of the really nice things is it truly is plug and play. You plug it in, you put it on the network, you assign an IP address, and it goes out and finds everything. Very little configuration, very easy to set up, and you get all this wealth of information that you probably had no idea was going on in your network, right? Because in the past, you'd have to go to each individual device or to figure out what the errors were. So really helping, again, with productivity, making people more efficient and giving you earlier indication of any potential issues with your equipment. So if we go to the next slide, then.
I think that might, oh yeah, one more, sorry.
There's one more, yeah. So this just kind of shows the different formats that you can get the information on. So so on the far left, if you just if you have traditional monitor, you've got your industrial, maybe you've got your VersaView 5400, you can go out to the website, you can go out to the IP address of the analytics appliance, and it'll show you the action cards that it's seeing. So the health and diagnostics information that is found. You can also access it within FactoryTalk Team 1, so within our mobile application. So then that way you're getting those action cards right on your phone. You can also chat with the bot, which is cool. So so there is a little bot that's built into the analytics appliance, and so you can chat with it and you can say, hey Shelby, how many of my devices have a warning or have an error or something like that, and it'll tell you you have 3 devices that are in alarm right now. So that's a really cool functionality where you can actually chat with it. And then on the far right, you're seeing some dashboards that you can create to just present the information in a little bit different manner. So again, lots and lots of capability. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to check it out. And then on the bottom, we're just showing all the different devices that we can pull data from. This is just kind of a small subset of the devices, but each of those devices has its own device profile, what we call a device profile. And so the analytics appliance knows, for example, what things to look at in a controller. So it knows, what data to grab from a controller to be able to notify you if there's a problem. Similarly with a PowerFlex drive. So just kind of showing some of the capability of that. And I think that's it, right? I think that's our last slide.
Yep, that is it. So we will give a chance to ask questions either here in the room or online. Again, you can type it in the question panel or raise your hand. I should be able to unmute your line if you'd like to ask it live and in person. And we'll wait a minute to see if anybody starts clicking away there. So in the meantime, I'll thank Julia again for joining us. Always good to have you join us. And Julia's from Cleveland, so she's like she was saying, it's not much warmer, or not much colder. I'm sorry, we're not much warmer than Cleveland today, so which is kind of a rare thing. But we'll be back just to kind of rub it in a little bit on you, Julie. We'll be back to 70, I think, by the weekend. They were saying so.
Okay, yeah. See, that's just mean. Yeah, we won't get anywhere near that.
Yeah. But yeah, so take your cold weather back.
Yeah, you don't want it, right?
Well, all right. Well, we're going to go ahead and I guess we'll wrap it up. If there's any questions, again, for our online audience, as always, thanks for joining us. We had a great crowd today. I know everybody was gathered around their monitors, staying toasty warm. They're either hunkered down at their house or at their office. So, as always, if you've got questions, reach out to us or your account manager with Reynolds at any time. We're always here to help. Once again, I want to thank Julie and Chris Watkins as well out of Houston, which is also frozen over today. So thank you guys for helping us out as always. And with that, we'll conclude. So thanks.
Thanks, Wayne.
Yep. Thanks.